A cabinet on wheels is a really handy way to store your tools, since you can move it wherever and whenever you need to. Besides a spacious lower cabinet with a drawer and pull-out shelf, there's a shallower upper cabinet with two pairs of upper doors hung on special hinges. And magnetic chalkboard panels in the outer doors are really good for writing messages or attaching notes with small magnets. Opening the outer doors reveals a set of magnetic racks on the inner doors that hold my small hand saws. There's also Kaizen foam panels mounted to the backs of the outer doors that hold most of my marking and layout tools. Opening the inner doors provides access to the contents of the upper cabinet, including my cordless drills and hand tools hung from tool hanger pegboard. Mounting the Rockler Tandem door hinges begins with attaching the base plates to the upper cabinet sides. After positioning the included paper template, I use an awl to mark two of the screw holes. After squaring up one of the hinges to the cabinet's edge, I line up the screw holes with the marks left by the awl, then use a self-centering drill bit to bore two pilot holes. Next, I drive a pair of screws to secure the hinge. Now I bore the rest of the pilot holes using the self-centering bit. I then drive the remaining screws into the hinge base plate. The process is then repeated for mounting the lower hinge to the cabinet side. Before the hinges can be mounted to the right-hand side of the cabinet, they must be reversed. After pulling the pin with a pair of locking pliers, the hinge leaves for the inner and outer doors are removed and switched around. Then the pin can be driven back in from the other end of the base plate. Once all the base plates are mounted in the cabinet, it's time to mark the position of the holes for the hinge leaves. With the door clamped in my work table, I position the included paper hinge leaf template on its edge, making sure that the folded over part of the template sits on the back side of the door frame. Now I use my awl to mark the two holes in the edge of the frame, making sure to use the correct leaf position on the template. I then slide the template down and mark the holes for the hinge leaf at the other end of the door. When all the hinge leaf holes have been marked, I set the cabinet upright on the work table and prepare to drill the pilot holes for the screws that will attach the inner pair of doors to their hinges. I position one of the doors on the longer hinge leaves, centering its screw holes on the marks I made with the awl, which I've also marked with a pencil for better visibility. I use a couple of pairs of small quick-action clamps to temporarily hold the door in place. Once again, I use the self-centering bit to bore a single pilot hole through each hinge leaf. I then enlarge these holes with a slightly larger drill bit to make it easier to drive the long mounting screws into the hard birchwood frames. I lubricate the long screws by rubbing candle wax into their threads. After driving one screw into each hinge leaf to secure it, I bore the second hole, enlarge it, and drive the screw in place. After all the long edge screws are in, I drill pilot holes and then drive the shorter screws that secure the face portion of each hinge leaf. With the inner doors in their closed position, I then proceed to mount the outer doors, following the same steps as before, always making sure to use the correct hinge leaf position when marking holes with the template. To prevent the closed doors from swinging open, a catch plate is installed on the bottom of the cabinet. The plate should be positioned so that it's about an inch from the edge of the outer door. After squaring the plate up with the cabinet, I drill 2 pilot holes and then screw the plate temporarily in place. Now, using a dead blow mallet, I strike the plate sharply so that the dimples in the plate leave a mark on the cabinet bottom. I remove the plate and mark the center of each dimple with a pencil. Then I bore a shallow hole on each mark using a 1/2 inch Forstner bit. I then screw the plate back in place and then repeat the process to mount the catch plate for the other set of doors. Next, I mark the position of the dimples relative to each door to help me position the nylon catches accurately. After flipping the tool cabinet onto its back, I open all the cabinet's doors. I use a quick action clamp to prop one of the doors open. Then I extend my dimple mark onto the frame's lower edge using a saddle square. Within all, I create a small pilot hole for the nylon catch. Then drive it in place with a small hammer. The only remaining task is to mount the special door pulls to both sets of inner and outer doors. After marking the position of each pull according to your personal preference, use the self-centering bit once again to bore pilot holes for the screws that secure the pulls to the door frames.